Hello, everyone. My name is Kaya Kane, Manager of Programs and Speakers here at Ascend. I would like to welcome all of our distinguished guests and esteemed participants to our inaugural Ascend Global Forum, celebrating and supporting our resilient AAPI veterans. Since the 1800s, AAPI veterans have honorably served our country, and today we recognize their contributions and learn from their experiences. As we commemorate Veterans Day, honoring all veterans, Ascend is proud to host this special program. May this serve as a platform for dialogue, understanding, and support as we strive to foster a culture of appreciation and empowerment for our esteemed veterans community. Thank you for joining us on this momentous occasion as we embark on a journey of celebration, recognition, and profound gratitude. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping announcements. Please feel free to use the chat function to talk with your fellow attendees and panelists about the program. Speakers will take questions during the show. Please use the Q&A function to post your questions. We would like to remind you that this is a safe space for our community, so please practice discretion and conduct yourself and express your opinions in a constructive and courteous manner. If you have any technical issues, please contact Marco Soto in the chat for assistance. This program is being live streamed on our YouTube channel. Look for Ascend Leadership on YouTube. If you know someone who would like to attend and has not registered, please direct them there. We are also posting the link in the chat. We invite you to follow us on all of our social media platforms and actively engage with our vibrant community. And now, let's begin.
My name is First Lieutenant Alex Choi.
First Lieutenant Mary Chris McLean.
Sergeant James Adrian Bien.
Corporal Lawrence Taquito.
Specialist Moa Isaac.
I grew up originally in New Jersey.
I grew up in the island of Saipan.
Manila, Philippines.
Born in Wisconsin.
I was born and raised here in the Philippines. I migrated to Hawaii in 2009 when I was 19.
My dad's from Hong Kong. My mom's originally from Shanghai. They both came here in the 70s.
My family is Hmong. There isn't a country, but it is a culture and an ethnicity. Originally from China, they migrated south towards Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. And after the Vietnam War, that's when most of the Hmong people immigrated to America.
My mom had, she's always been the hard worker in our family. She had a job, got a job in US, and she took us from Philippines to United States. And that's pretty much how all my family got into America and living the American dream.
Growing up here was a lot different. I grew up here learning how to actually the same thing that we learned on survival trainings. My grandfather would normally take us to the rice fields and to the farm and just learn how to cook rice on the bamboo and all those stuff that everybody was learning here. I did enjoy learning them when I was a little kid as well, and spending time with my grandfather in the rice fields.
Being AAPI in the Army means a lot to me. I see soldiers from where I'm from join the Army, and it's a great feeling to be there to assist them in any way I can.
So I think that diversity is one of the most important things for the Army. While I've been in, I've met so many different people, and even though we are so different, we're all able to still work together. I think that bringing in and introducing new cultures to people is a very enriching experience.
It's huge for the Army because that's where we learn from each other how to operate in different environments. Like being here in the Philippines, it was a great opportunity for myself to be able to communicate with the locals and help my unit.
As an AAPI, it's really important for the Army. just because the Army, even though we're all multicolor, we all end up in one color.
Ascend family, guests, welcome to our inaugural forum celebrating and spotlighting our resilient AAPI veterans. I'm Lucy Yang, a reporter with WABC TV Eyewitness News. I would like to thank Ascend and the Walt Disney Company for this opportunity to be your host today. As we begin, please join me in a moment of silence to remember the heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice and their loved ones. Thank you. I am humbled and excited to be with you as we embrace our veterans for their service, their valor, and for defending our lives. Vets, you are our nation's greatest assets, and we honor you. This event is close to my heart. I'm married to a veteran. My two sons went to West Point. My older one graduated last year and recently passed Ranger School, and just last weekend graduated Airborne School. My husband pinned the paratrooper wings 37 years after he graduated Airborne in the very same spot. My younger son is a junior at West Point. This semester, he's studying at the Naval Academy so that at the end of his college career, he will have experience at 2 service academies. My sister was the first Taiwanese American woman to attend the Naval Academy, and she was followed by a posse of my nephews and a niece. So as an immigrant myself, it fills me with joy to know my family has chosen to defend our adopted home country. AAPIs have been honorably serving in the U.S. since the 1800s, and we're proud to salute all of them, especially as we commemorate Veterans Day here in America and Remembrance Day in Canada. We have an impressive lineup of storytellers and leaders from across the globe. They represent the richness of the Ascend Network, where members can share and learn from each other. Today, we will celebrate AAPI veterans and glean leadership lessons from their experience. We'll explore the influence of cultural heritage and the desire to serve regardless of country of birth. We'll dive deeper into civic engagement and showcase tangible ways we can support veterans' reentry into civilian life, including their unique employment and mental health needs. Ascend is proud to collaborate with countless business partners who actively support and elevate veterans. I'm excited to share that the Walt Disney Company, parent of ABC Network, is one of those critical partners. Disney's Heroes Work Here program reflects the long history of respect and appreciation Disney has for the U.S. Armed Services. Since its launch in 2012, Disney has hired more than 15,000 veterans via this program. In fact, Heroes Work Here received the Freedom Award from the Secretary of Defense. The Ascend team will share more information about Disney's program and opportunities from other Ascend partners. Now let's pivot to our first storyteller, Honorary Colonel Hari Panday from Canada. Hari joined the 32nd Service Battalion in the Canadian Armed Forces in May of 2011 as the Honorary Colonel. He is a leader in finance, an academic, author, and frequent speaker on corporate governance and public policy. His professional work spans Canada, USA, the EU, and India. Colonel Panday, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be with all of you and thoroughly honored that I am with such an illustrious gathering of my comrades and the corporate executives. I was just having some systems challenges, but I think we have figured this out. So I'm happy to do this call from my cell phone, and hopefully you can see me and hear me appropriately. So let me start, given the limitation of time. I'll start off by giving you a little snapshot into my journey of this endeavor. So as a business executive, I had no idea that I could really put on a uniform and get a chance to do things that I have done, both with the armed forces and with the families of the armed forces, as well as after their retirement, once they move into civilian life, how I've been able to assist and help the those servicemen and women who have been in the forces. So my journey really began as a matter of default during the Afghanistan campaign, and quite frankly, I started to look at. I was a bank executive then, and I started to look at how I could help the families of the fallen. Quite frankly, and I started that journey on my own. I'm into my 13th year of service as an honorary colonel in 32 Service Battalion, which is a reserve unit in Canada, and it's a very prominent one. It has two garrisons. One deals with logistics, and the other one is actually deals with the elites of the electrical mechanical engineers corps. So those two trades are present, and within that we have all the military cooks, the maintenance of arms and ammunition and vehicles. That all rests with our battalion. My journey, as I found that during Afghanistan campaign, as the troops were coming home, I found that the common public, the public at large, kind of looked at the news item at six o'clock primetime news, but then the next morning it was kind of a non-event for them. So I thought that it was not right, and it was not very patriotic. So, cultural background, I come originally from India. We have a lot of warrior culture, and the national theme is very prominent in our existence and everything we do. So the nation comes first in everything that is done. Growing up as a kid, that's what I grew up with, culturally speaking. So I started to get involved with that, and certainly as a default, I came across a four-star general by the name General Rick Hillier, and he pointed out to me that there was such a provision in the Canadian Armed Forces where people, business executives like myself or people like myself, could come in and really help the soldiers and their families and the officers from the inside. So through that journey, I had a good fortune of working, going on exercises with them. I had a chance to go to the combat zone in Afghanistan and live there to feel the heartbeat of the soldiers. So that's on the international side. Domestically, I participate in their exercises pretty much twice or three times in a year, and had the chance to go to the North Pole region, place called Alert, which is the farthest inhabited point in the world, where we have a NORAD listening post, and we keep an eye on our Arctic Circle from that location. So I've had incredible exposure when it comes to gaining in my relationship, my personal gain in that endeavor. Now, the second part is what do I do? And you probably saw in some of the photographs that are being shown here. I tend to bring these troops and the officers, both general and flag officers. General officers are the one in the Army and Navy, and the flag officers are the ones who serve in the Navy. So what I do is personally is bring them into the corporate arena, give them an exposure by way of, for example, brought the troops over to open the market, the Toronto Stock Exchange, for example, and then bring them to various fundraising events where they get to shake hands with a few of the corporate executives. They get to know and feel what the corporate world looks like, something like the Wall Street we have in Toronto called Bay Street. So the troops come in their uniform. People want to have shake hands with them and ask questions. And that way we not only show our presence, the armed forces presence in the business community, but also we show to the troops that once they exit the service, that there is this world out there. That's another one of those things that I do. The next item that I also do in my world is that on Saturday and Sunday mornings is my time with the troops. So often the troops who are looking for transitioning, I sit down with them, I look at their resume, give them some sort of mock interviews so they can prepare themselves. Because what you need to appreciate is many of the troops and the officers, they have joined the forces is really starts at the age of 17, and they really don't know what else is going on out there in the work environment. So I sit down with them and kind of share what our business world looks like, work with them on their resume, work with their families if there's a family issue. There are soldiers who are suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome, uh, spending time with them. And many of them, because they're so proud people, they're really having that half an hour or an hour with them really helps them to stabilize and sensitize them that we really care about them. Some of the retired soldiers and officers, they want to start a business. So people like those who are on this call today, we all recognize that we can sit down with them and give them some guidance how to deal with the landlord for the premises. How do you negotiate a lease? How do you go to a bank officer and talk about your business plan? What should be the contents of a business plan for a small business and enterprise? So all of that kind of thing from an economic well-being point of view, post-transition is where we as executives, we as corporate directors, can really add value to their future. And I have always believed personally, I've always believed that economic well-being brings a lot of stability on one's existence in their ecosystem. So that's from what I do in terms of my work with the forces, my journey. I'm continuing to serve. The appointment, it is an appointment, and it's an appointment actually. The way the system works, it is done by the, believe it or not, the crown, our head of state, which is the king. And so it's when Her Majesty the Queen was alive, my appointment was a scroll from her appointing me as the Queen's officer, as an honorary colonel of the Canadian Army. So it's a very sensitive, very prized role that I get to play as a business executive. Now the other part, and before I stop, I'll just share with you what have I gotten back from the forces. Certainly from our leadership point of view, from the business leaders' point of view, we do a lot of things. We expose them to the world that we live in. But at the same time, I have been a direct beneficiary of my work in the forces. And first and foremost thing that I noticed, and I wish I had done what I do today maybe 20 years ago, like many of us think, I wish I was there. The first and foremost is the regard for the leadership. One of the things that you find in the forces is that leaders are so sensitive towards the troops that the troops have a level of respect and the most important thing called trust, which in the corporate world, as you can imagine today, we are actually debating to such an extent, how do we maintain trust with employees? How do we build our trust with our stakeholders, that is customers, investors, regulators, and so on and so forth. In the forces, it becomes kind of your DNA that you start to respect the leadership because inherently, that your general or your commander is actually looking after your interest and your family's interest. So the aspect today, I want to make it relevant for all of you under the S part of the ESG, which is the social part. It really helps understand the interrelationships in a different way between the leaders and the workers, so to speak. So you have a greater appreciation that I have today than I did before I was serving in the armed forces. The other aspect is the respect for the family. The entire armed forces, no matter where you go, you look at them as your family. Even whether you're deployed or you're on exercise or you're home working away, the family is a very important component for us. So I'll give you my example. When I went to Kabul, The people in my battalion were regularly checking up with my wife if she needed some help, and they were always available if she needed help. I do the same thing from the point of their departure for deployment to the time they come back to Canada. I am then at the airport to receive them at the Air Force Base. And so that kind of family relationship that we're trying to embed in our corporate world is something that I had an appreciation for. So as a result, I feel that I'm a better corporate director today when I sit on corporate boards. I'm going to bring this to an end, and by just highlighting that some of you who can see that this red poppy that you have on my lapel. This is the Remembrance Day coming up on the 11th of November, and this poppy is there to signify. It's a symbol of remembrance and hope for a peaceful future. It also signifies the support for our troops. It is an enduring symbol that we have carried since the First World War. So any one of you who are seeing this, it is just not a fashion statement, but it is really in dedication to our forces. With that, I will pause and I will invite my other comrade here, Jason Koriwa. Jason, please come in.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. And thank you all for having me today to share my story, really our story, about the important contributions honoring AAPI veterans and their families. My granduncles, next slide, please. My granduncle served in World War II, the legendary 442nd Regimental Combat Team, Korea and Vietnam. One highlight is that my granduncle who served in Korea is portrayed in a 1959 movie, Pork Chop Hill, with Gregory Peck, based on the book by the same name by Brigadier General S.L.A. Marshall. The actor, George Shibata, who played him, is a West Point graduate. And one final comment, his last name is Ohashi, O-H-A-S-H-I, without the apostrophe. My father served in the 100th Battalion, 442nd Infantry Battalion, the only United States Army Reserve Infantry Battalion in the Army, and then later deployed to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division. My uncle served in Vietnam as well, Air Force, Navy, Cold War in the Marine Corps. And my aunt, formerly a Navy spouse, now a veteran spouse, also served too. And to highlight my generation, my cousin served in the Navy as an FA-18 pilot. His call sign was Tattoo. And two cousins are now veteran spouses in the Air Force and Army. And that's just my father's side of the family. My wife's father's family was incarcerated at Gila River, Arizona. Her grandfather was a Christian minister in Hawaii who was detained in Honolulu, relocated to Angel Island, and later Lordsburg. Following Lordsburg, my wife's grandmother, her father, and her uncle were reunited with their grandfather at Gila River relocation camp until the end of the war. I'm a retired soldier who served as a platoon leader in the 82nd Airborne Division, a company commander in Germany and Hawaii. And it's great to be a company commander in Hawaii, where you grew up and actually working back where you grew up. Diplomatic liaison officer in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Patriot Technical Assistant Field Team, later served as an HR director for an 83-person organization in the El Anbar province in Iraq. You heard of Ramadi, El Assad, that's where we were. This organization, the 3rd Cavalry, was the recipient of the Valorous Unit Award, the second highest organization award. And then I later served again as a senior director responsible for the movement of mail in the Middle East and later Pacific Theater. The soldiers in the organization in the Middle East was the recipient of the Meritorious Unit Commendation, the 3rd highest organizational award. Next slide, please. Transitioning to the Japanese American Veterans Association, or JAVA. JAVA is a nonprofit veterans organization to empower veterans, reserves, active duty, and family members that they have for the entitlements that they have earned. Educating the public on the Japanese American World War II experience and its legacy, and perpetuating the memory and history of our departed comrades, and working with other veterans organizations towards mutual objectives. Even though our name is the Japanese American Veterans Association, Membership is open to anyone, everyone. Our name is due to the respect of our founders, who are Nisei veterans and their families, and I encourage you to look at our website at www.java-us.org, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. For Veterans Day, this Saturday, November 11th, our annual Veterans Day event is co-hosted with the National Japanese American Memorial Foundation and will be at the National Japanese American Memorial to Patriotism in World War II in Washington, D.C., the intersection of New Jersey Avenue, Louisiana, and D Street at 2 p.m. This event will also be live streamed on Facebook. If you are in D.C., later at 4 p.m., David Ono and Jeff McIntyre's Defining Courage will be shown at the Kennedy Center for the first time in D.C. for an immersive and educational event. Tickets are available on their website at definingcourageshow.com. This event will not be live streamed on Facebook. Finally, if you're in Washington, D.C., from now until December 15th, I highly recommend visiting a special event at the Japan Information and Culture Center, GICC, at the Embassy of Japan. JICC and Java are hosting Eric Saul's Go for Broke, Japanese American Soldiers Fighting in Two Fronts. This exhibition features rare photographs and documents depicting the Japanese American World War II military service. I will be remiss if I don't mention briefly about the great work that DOL Vets does. I'm honored and humbled to serve on the U.S. Department of Labor Advisory Committee, where DOL and other federal agencies have been phenomenal advocates in enabling all veterans, service members, and military spouses to reach their full potential in the workplace. We do need your continued support. A recent Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS, analysis determined that veterans' unemployment rate from September 2022 to August 2023, every veteran category by ethnic group was lower than their non-veterans counterpart, which is great. With the exception, the Asian veterans was higher than our non-veteran counterparts. So we do need your time and expertise. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me to assist you with connecting with U.S. Department of Labor vets teammates. I encourage you to visit the dol.gov/vets website for an overview of the many great programs available. Thank you very much for your time to share my story. And I know that your story is far more extraordinary. And most importantly, I would like to wish Ascend, fellow panelists, and you, our attendees, a mahalo nui loa for your support of your service members, veterans, and their families, as Ohana serves too, Ohana's family in Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason and Colonel Panday. Thank you for your service, for your enlightening contributions, and for your participation in this program today. We appreciate your time. Jason will continue to engage with the audience via chat. And Jason, I wrote down Pork Chop Hill. I can't wait to watch it this weekend. So our next segment features a decorated Asian American female who rose through the Army ranks to become a brigadier general. She is a powerful inspiration to all of us. And to moderate her segment, I turn to Ascend's very own Kenneth Wong, who sits on the advisory board of Ascend's Greater Philadelphia chapter. Ken's parents immigrated to the U.S. from China and Hong Kong. Since 2017, he has served as the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. And for 3 years, he had a seat on the President's Commission on AAPIs. Ken, thank you for being part of this important gathering today. And thank you for bringing our very high-ranking guest, Brigadier General Lisa Howe.
Thank you, Lucy. And I'm proud to be on the event for this year, our inaugural event. And as we said earlier in the program, Asian Americans have been serving in our military since back as far as early as that we know in 1812. And Asian Americans have served gallantly and highly decorated all through the years and have risen through the ranks. And we're really, really lucky today to have joining us is Brigadier General Lisa Howe, and her story is really, really interesting and incredible. So Lisa Howe, General Howe, is the Adjutant General and the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, which means she is the top military leader in the state of New Jersey and serves, I believe, as a cabinet position with the governor. General Howe joined the New Jersey National Guard in 1994 while she was a medical student at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, the School of Osteopathic Medicine, where she received her doctoral degree in osteopathic medicine. Now, I can't even imagine being in medical school, which is tough enough, and then joining the military. And we'll ask her about that in a minute or so. General Howe has been in many leadership roles over the years with the New Jersey National Guard, where she has, commanded thousands of troops in the state of New Jersey, and she's actually been deployed in Afghanistan, as a field surgeon, where she was responsible for the welfare and care of over 600 troops. As said earlier, she has numerous awards and recognition for her service. But without further ado, let me get started on our little chat with Brigadier General Howe. General Howe, ma'am, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here.
And as I said earlier, in your bio, how you joined the National Guard. I mean, you were attending medical school. What made you decide to join the military while you're going to medical school?
So it's kind of a funny story. So the military first piqued my interest. My grandfather was a 2-star general in the Chinese Nationalist Army. And when he came to the US, he was also a physician. So kind of, I felt like I could do that, follow in his footsteps. But I had already decided to go to medical school. I was a 3rd-year student, and one of my classmates, he was a year ahead of me. He was a pilot in the Army National Guard, and he started doing a research project between our school and the Army Guard pilots. And he brought me into the project, and I got to fly on the helicopters. I believe we had Hueys at the time. We flew with the doors open, and it was the greatest thrill I had experienced to that point. And I was hooked. And not long after that, I went and found a recruiter and signed up. So.
Now, since you've obviously been, in a helicopter, you're not certified to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, are you?
I'm not certified. I did do it once with my sister on my 40th birthday, but I'm good now.
Terrific. So obviously, I don't know how, I'm just going to ask this question that many people may be interested in is, as a female Asian American in the military, that I know at some point in time, if there was a glass ceiling, how'd you find yourself navigating your career through that glass ceiling?
I've always been someone to just do what I felt was right, and just, my father was, very hard on us. I have 3 sisters. He was always very hard on us to study hard and work hard, and what I think many of us experience. But one of the obstacles for getting to general officer is your military education, and especially being in the military as a physician, most of them want to stay at practicing medicine and taking care of the injured, but we never go, we never really continue to do the primary military education. So it doesn't allow us to promote beyond, as a colonel. In the Army, you're only required as a physician to do basic training. So you can actually make it to 06 without any other further education. I always hated when people say, oh, they're just medical, and they're not really military. And that always honestly made me mad. So I pushed to do all the military education. I think I was the first physician in New Jersey Guard to go to War College. So when at the time I was the commander of our medical command, and I had, the invitation went out to all the eligible people to apply for War College. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want to apply for nothing else, just to get educated, be more military. and I was thankfully selected. So that made me eligible to be promoted beyond that. And even at that time, I didn't really think about, my goal when I was younger in my career was to, be the state surgeon and make 06. And I did that, but now, well, why stop there? Right. So there was a position at National Guard Bureau that I wanted to apply for. That's a brigadier general position. So I talked to my adjutant general at the time, and he put me in for a certificate of eligibility for that. Specifically, the intent was for me to apply for that position. And then COVID happened. And then, in my role, just for background, on the National Guard side, I have 8,400 soldiers and airmen, and then in the Army and Air Guard. On the state side, I have, I'm dual headed as the commissioner, as Ken had mentioned, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. We're one of the few states that still has those two, the Guard and the veteran side combined. So in that capacity, that's where I sit as a cabinet member for the governor. And we oversee 3 veterans nursing homes, 2 facilities for 2 transitional facilities for homeless veterans, several memorials, a benefits bureau. So a lot of services to support the over 300,000 veterans in the Garden State. So I just, I don't know. So COVID happened and it affected our homes, and the governor felt that having a physician in the position would be helpful. So that's how I ended up where I am now. So, and it wasn't something, I'll be honest, not something that I looked for. I was the deputy adjutant general at the time. And I always told my boss I never wanted his job, but here I am. And, I always push my younger, officers and enlisted that I mentor. I always say, when an opportunity comes, don't ever pass it up. Don't self-eliminate. So here I am. It's been just over 3 years. So.
Well, that's kudos to you, ma'am. So as you and I were chatting a little bit earlier, just being smart and working hard doesn't always guarantee you success. So there's, based on this, what you just shared with us, if there's one thing that you could share with the audience, what would that be in addition to working hard and being smart? What else do you think is important for AAPI young executives to think about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can't help thinking about the power that diversity brings to any organization. And this is, I think, especially true of the military. And, Ken, as you and I discussed earlier, we feel the military is important in helping service members develop those soft skills that are key to success. And those were his words, not mine. But, these really stem from our core values. In the Army, we have loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. And because I oversee the Air Force as well in the Guard, their values, integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And these are values that we try to instill in our soldiers and airmen to live by every day, whether they're in or out of uniform. And those core values really, enhance our ability to encourage discipline and develop leadership, and traits that can be useful in and out of, even in their civilian jobs. In the Guard, National Guard, the majority of them are part-timers, so they have civilian jobs, and they take those values with them in everything that they do.
Excellent. So I'm just looking at, some of our questions from the audience. This is a good question. How difficult was it to manage medical school and drill simultaneously?
It was difficult for sure. I admit I was not probably the best soldier at the time because I missed a lot of drills, especially when I was studying for board exams and that kind of stuff. But I know for us in the Guard, we do have a flexible training program. So for those specifically for medical students and interns and residents, we allow flexibility in rearranging their schedule so that, especially when they have things like exams coming up, because the way, we see it is they're not really as useful. We want them to be our docs, and they're not, if they don't graduate, we're not getting what we need out of them either. So, so we are flexible with them.
Great. One more, my next question really is, now that you're sitting, you're sitting in the position you are as the Adjutant General for the state of New Jersey, what would you say is the most important leadership quality that you feel has helped lead you to the position you're in now?
So I published not a policy, but guided my philosophy of my priorities, and my number one priority is people. So taking care of our people is, to me, the most important thing, because without people, we're nothing. So, and it's all encompassing. It's obviously making sure that they're trained and ready to do the mission, but caring about them as people, knowing what's going on in their family life, when they're having difficulties, being there to support them, them knowing that we do care. I think that it's just as important, because if they're worried about what's going on at home, they're not focusing on the mission. So I think that's really important. I actually, 2 nights ago, Sunday, I went to, we have our brigade is deploying overseas in a couple months. And so some of them were going, 2 of the battalions were going through their medical evaluations, to make sure they're ready. And I saw them in small groups. I shook hands and, asked them what are, told them how proud I am of them, but asked them what are their concerns, what are their questions. And for the most part, I was really, really proud that they're all very excited, and the morale was great. But I did notice one soldier who was off to the side and kind of looked down when I asked the question. And so I actually took him aside afterwards and said, hey, you look like you have some concerns. And I took him aside so it wasn't in front of anybody. We talked for almost an hour, and he had some family concerns, for when he's going to be away. So together we came up with some courses of action and, things that he could do to help support his family while he's gone. And he's much more comfortable. And I think it helped that he feels like we care about him as a person and his family. So that goes a really long way. To me, the Guard, they're my second family. I actually see them more than my primary family, but if they know that and they feel that, it makes all the world a difference.
And that's a great philosophy. Caring for your people, whether you're caring for your people while they're in uniform or in the corporate world, caring for your, the folks, your subordinates. I hate to use the word subordinates, but the people that you work with, your team members. I think that's such a great transferable skill that we find in our military leaders, that, when they transition out of the military into the corporate world, some of the great soft skills that our military leaders have developed while they were serving in uniform transfers so well into our civilian workforce. So thank you very much for that. One of the other questions we got from the audience is, what advice do you have for younger professionals and women who want to pursue a career in the military?
Sign up. No, seriously, be you, work hard. Obviously, we mentioned working hard, but that's not enough. Work hard, but I always say, and I said it before, was, when opportunities come, take them, be qualified. One of the problems, I'll be honest, I'm not a proponent of people being promoted to positions or getting positions because of their ethnic background or because of their, the race or gender or identity. I believe in best qualified, but what we need to do, and as AAPI, folks, we need to mentor our young people, whether they're young officers, young enlisted, or people, our children, early on to be the best qualified, help them find that path of what they want, help them meet all the steps to get there. And that way they're not self-eliminating. So. Yep.
I believe in that myself, that, if we start talking to our younger folks in our Asian American and Pacific Islander communities about how to best prepare themselves, how to have a plan, then what we are able to do is open up a lot of those options, whether it's in the military or not. But at least those options are there because they are qualified, because they have put together a plan and have prepared themselves well. So I think that's all the time we have for our fireside chat. And I want to again thank you, Brigadier General Lisa Howe from the New Jersey National Guard. And I think we are going to now transition into our panel discussion. Are we ready to do that? Are we going to make that move? So joining us today is Winston Heng, former commander, retired U.S. Navy Reserves, and now a principal at Deloitte. Mr. Ricardo Sanchez, he is the Veterans Community Network Global Lead at Bristol Myers Squibb. And Ricardo is a Marine and always will be a Marine. You never were a Marine. And again, we have Brigadier General Lisa Howe joining our panel discussion. So welcome all three of you. And first of all, thank you all for your service, present and past, and your continued service, in our community. So let me start off with one of my first questions for the panel. Now, we talked about it briefly with General Howe, but with Winston and Ricardo, why in the world would you ever join the military?
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, and good afternoon, everyone. It is certainly an honor for me to be part of this panel, and General Howe, it's nice to meet you. And Ricardo, we talked a little bit. Yeah, so my story, I grew up in Malaysia. I came to the US in 1980 to pursue my college education. Lucky enough to meet my wife in college. We both were supporting ourselves and graduated. So I graduated a long time ago in 84 with a petroleum engineering degree. Unfortunately, the oil industry collapsed in 83-ish. So couldn't get a job. Very proud of my degree. Went back to work. And got went back to night school, got my MBA in finance, lucky enough to end up with the Federal Reserve Bank. And then my wife and I, worked very close to each other, and then this opportunity to serve the Navy came up. And we were chatting about it, and both of us, my wife grew up in Korea, actually born in Korea, but was adopted and grew up in Arkansas. And since both of us were supporting ourselves through school, we were able to do it, without getting a loan, without owing anything. And when the Navy opportunity came out, I was chatting with her. Our son was already born then, and we have a house in Oklahoma, and cars pretty much settled down. But as we reflected on the opportunity, it came to us pretty clearly that the country is so great to us. We're able to do everything, no debt, and what a wonderful opportunity to serve. We were very grateful for everything that we had, even though we had to work through everything. So decided to, explore that opportunity. So took that opportunity and went to officer candidate school in 87 after Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, right after I left the Federal Reserve Bank the day before Thanksgiving, and went through that. So very grateful, very honored to have the opportunity to serve in the world's greatest Navy. So that's and then I when I was selected for that, and when I got my commission, became a supply corps officer, and then was actually fortunate enough to be selected for the headquarters to be assigned to the new Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program, and that got me to DC. And then as I transitioned off after 6 years of active duty, decided to stay in the reserve and did a lot of contingency contracting to support our troops in the Middle East. And then stayed 14 years in the reserve with a gap because I was overseas on assignment in consulting, and then fortunate and blessed enough to retire in the reserve. So that's the story.
Absolutely.
Pretty humble, pretty honored, and pretty humble to be able to do that.
Thank you. How about you, Ricardo? What prompted you to sign on the line? Raise your right hand.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. First, I want to just, say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you all for the opportunity. Ascend. I feel very honored to be here, especially in the presence of the Brigadier General. So my story runs a similar line. I was born in Colombia. That's Colombia with 2 O's in South America, not with a U. And I was brought here when I was 5 years old to the United States, to New Jersey. I grew up in a low income area. It's a marginalized city in New Jersey. And there weren't a whole lot of opportunities. But just, being the type of person that I had to become at a very early age, I had to help my family out with translations, with understanding some finances things. I had to grow up a little bit quicker than others. But at the end of the day, I had a roof over my head, I had food on the table, and I understood that the sacrifice that my parents made in the decision to have me and my siblings come to the United States was a big one. In the life that I lived, even though it was a little on the rough side, it was still much better than what I could have potentially lived had I stayed in Colombia. So throughout my youth and up until now, of course, I've always had that sense. Well, in my youth, I should say, I had a sense of indebtedness to this country. And as an immigrant, I think that's something that a lot of us feel, and it resonates with a lot of us. So when it came down to make a decision of what I wanted to do with after high school, it was easy for me to raise my right hand and to pledge allegiance to this country that had given my family and myself a second chance or this better life. And it's always interesting, and I like to point this out, that I joined before I became a citizen. And because regardless of citizenship, this was important to me. And it was, again, a way that I could give back to this great nation. And then, of course, when the opportunity came up, I 100% became a citizen. And that's really important for me to highlight. And of course, it happens to a lot of us where we live in areas that don't have a lot of resources. My family, again, we come from very humble beginnings. There was no way of paying for college. Not that was ever really in the cards for me, or in my thought processes, I should say, that I was going to go to college. Go and join the Marine Corps in order to go to college or pay for college. But it definitely did help later down the road, because my time in service, my first job was an armorer, as we say. I fixed weapons, and my second job was as a Marine security guard. So for 3 years, I was overseas working with the State Department, and it was really that second opportunity that exposed me to an entire different career that I didn't know existed. And then that's when I knew I'm ready to get out, do a different career, and do my studying. But it gave me the time that I needed to mature, to come up with a proper plan to exit, and not to say anything, but not to be a statistic like many of us on the enlisted side become, because we don't exit with a plan. And again, I was able to pay for college through the opportunities to the post 9/11 GI Bill, and made a lot of connections in my time in service, in my time working as a Marine security guard. So that's my why, and a little bit of more of my career path.
Sounded like your decision to join the Marine Corps was a great part of your own personal career strategy.
Yes. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but it became one.
Great. General Howe, we know that, you mentioned earlier why you joined. So this question is going to be, what types of leadership skills do you think you developed while in the military that has made you a better leader?
Learning to listen to others better. Being a leader is also, there's no one leader that can know or do it all. And I have, pulled together a great team. So I talk to them on a regular basis, and, I get different opinions on all the different things, and being able to be open to that, I think is a big deal. Just, you know, if we think we're the only person that can have the right answers, then we're not doing it.
Thank you. Winston, how about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with the general. I will also say, you know, trusting the people you work with, right? The leadership skills and decision making, because at times we have to make very tough decisions. Trusting the people, and also building, you know, an environment that's more inclusive. I think we talk about inclusion here, right? That you get a different perspective, and at the end of the day, as a leader, you have to make the decision. Decision making, I would say, trust, and then also listening.
Ricardo?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we come from a very diverse group. I mean, just look at us here on this panel. We have immigrants from all over the place, and it's a beautiful mosaic. And it's that diversity that brings a diversity in perspective, and that is key in decision making. That is not just inclusive, but also just more thought out, because it looks at all the different possible gaps. Also, you know, as veterans, we work really well under pressure. And I saw that actually in one of the Q&A answers. We're able to execute. We're able to execute in a timely manner with different pressures, competing demands. And that really makes us stand out. It makes us stand out more from our civilian peers.
Great, thank you. So with that in mind, some of the skill sets that you've developed, if you don't mind sharing, what's one of the toughest challenges you faced while you were serving, and how did you go about overcoming that with these new developed skill sets? General Howe?
It's a tough one. I'd say one thing I didn't experience as much before this position was dealing with our service members who have been subject to SARC issues, sexual assault or harassment. And, you know, as a medical provider, I worked with them on the clinical side, but as a leader and having to make decisions, that's been not as clear cut as you think. So that's been difficult, but being able to talk to people and listen to input for others has been really valuable in making those decisions.
Thank you. Thank you. Ricardo.
It's a blessing and a curse. A very hard thing is when you're in the military, and I experienced this a lot in the enlisted side, because I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. And so there's a lot of developing and a lot of mentoring, but it's a very different kind of mentoring that you do here in the corporate side, because this is mentoring that you're doing on the very professional side and then on the very, very personal side as well. So when they have issues at home, you know, in the enlisted side, you know, we have, you know, you'll have some service members that are having a tough time paying rent. We don't get paid a whole lot. And so it's also, you have to be their financial planner. You have to be their family readiness officer. And so there's a lot of different aspects to this mentoring. And it's very rewarding, especially when they make strides and they move up and they have these amazing accomplishments. But during that path, it can be very challenging. And so bringing that over to the corporate side, that prepares you, because now I mentor youth and even my peers when we talk about our experiences. And it's a lot easier because there's this whole other component that's not part of it. But in the case that they do have questions, just like I mentor a lot of youth, and some of them are just starting their careers, just coming out. They're like, listen, I come from a very similar background where I didn't have my family to be able to explain these things to me, because it just wasn't a thing to talk about or an option. how can you help me navigate this? How do I do a 401k? How do I put away in my HSA? And so that I love that kind of stuff. I love mentoring because then I can tell them I know this not just from what I've seen and learned here in corporate, but also from my personal experience. And so these are some of the tips and tricks that I've heard from my mentors that has been able to make me much more effective and successful.
Great, thank you, Ricardo. Winston?
Yeah, just to add on, I think the decision making when you're in the military, right, has huge implications. You know, when you decide on something versus when you're in the civilian side, right? You can make a decision. Implications are not as severe, right? Whether you're deploying people, whether you are making a decision that impact lives and all that, I would say that one. And then also you need to understand the process, the structure within the military, right? Sometimes it's not as flexible, but you got what you got, and then you have to decide how you decide. And hopefully in the best interest of our, whether it's a Marine soldier or in my case, sailors, right? And people you work with. So I would say that's one. And then the second one is at the end of the day, I think everyone covered, right? People are at the center of it. Whether, you talk about war, you talk about anything, at the end it's our people. So really trying to make sure that you keep that in mind when you make decisions, I think that's important.
Great, thank you very much. One last question, real quick. Quick round, lightning round. What would you, if a young person, if you were talking to a young person today and and the military wasn't on their mind at all, what would you say to them that you think that might make them think about it, at least as an option? General Howe?
The military offers so many things, in addition to what you can get on the civilian side. The bonds that we create, the camaraderie, and aside from the free tuition, that's a nice incentive. There's just so much as a person that you get out of it that you can't even describe it.
Ricardo?
I'll just say, have an understanding of what it is that you want to do. And in the military, it's there. And it's not only there, but you're going to get an actual training from the nitty-gritty all the way to the strategic, big and complex. And that's going to make you successful in whatever you decide, whether you decide to do 20 years or be a brigadier general, or you decide to do your first contract and come over to the civilian side. You're going to be much more prepared. And then as an exit strategy, make sure you're networking, because the transition is a totally different story.
Winston?
Yeah, I would just add to that. Like, I think it builds character and gets you a very disciplined, mission focus, right? Get the stuff done, and then you build the team camaraderie, the teamwork, and the leadership skills that are all, I would say, very transferable. I think the issue for people transitioning from veteran to military to civil sector or corporate America is translating all the skills that they have acquired, right? It's not an easy, right? So I think from corporate America perspective, really understanding what individual brings and how you help them translate those skills, because those skills are very portable, right? And very useful, to support any mission.
Great, thank you. So one of the questions we have from the audience is, how can the private corporate sector assist veterans transitioning into civilian life? General Howe?
Oh, I'm not there yet, but
maybe from your perspective in uniform, what can corporate America do to help your soldiers and airmen transition in?
So one of the things that we do is we try to collaborate with a lot of our community leaders and organizations. So in New Jersey, we've worked with the governor to create a We Value Our Veteran Award, and what it does, in order for it could be a corporation, a educational institution, even a community like a county or town can be eligible for this award. And what they do is have to do certain steps, and they can be creative in how they do it, but then they kind of get points, things that they can do for veterans, showing their support. And with that, we talk to them about the transition, and a lot of these award winners, they have veteran liaisons within their company, which helps them to transition.
Great, thank you. Ricardo, I know you lead up the Veterans Network at BMS. how can you tell us how what BMS is doing?
Yeah, no, I love this question. We're so ready for it. And I just want to say that we work with the ESGR General, and we have been recipients of the Freedom and Patriot Awards for our managers. So, it's exactly what you're saying, General. So here in BMS, we have such a unique opportunity because our affinity groups are full-time lead roles. Right. This is all I do. I work on veterans issues, how to recruit, how to retain them, work for diverse suppliers, also in how to increase treatment to our veterans and military patients. And this is where I think we're like one of two companies in corporate America that actually has this type of role. And I encourage all other corporations to look into this. Because if you really mean what you're putting out as far as like this, we're supporting veterans, this should be a no-brainer. And I'm proud to be part of a company that values us and our other groups that much. And that's one piece. And the other piece is for your affinity groups, for your ERGs, your employee resource groups, as it's typically called. When we're looking for talent, one thing is to be out there to do the recruiting fairs and all that. The other thing is to put a little bit more time. I know it's a lot of time, but really have one-on-ones, because you can come across hundreds of thousands of applications, and we all have that difficulty in translating, as we've been mentioning a lot on this panel. So it's taking the time of just doing that one-on-one. Okay, I see your resume. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's try to transfer these skills, fine-tune them, and then see what roles are similar to what you want that is here in the company, and try to push that forward throughout the process. Because if you just do the one and done, then they're going to miss out on a lot. They're going to lose motivation because we're not going to feel that people are actually looking out for us. And that's something that we always miss, that camaraderie, that support. So I think those are two of the big things that I would suggest.
Great, thank you. Winston.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple more things. I think one is every veteran has a different background. I think they are very skilled. And so from a corporate America perspective, truly understanding what their background is, helping them translate their mission and military skills to commercial sector. I say that's one. Number two, we are coming, if you look at veterans coming from a very structured environment, in some cases, corporate America is not. Like I'm in consulting, right? Consulting is very ambiguous, right? So helping them understand how to adjust from a very structured hierarchical to a more flat organization, how to navigate that, I think is critical. And I would say number three, military spouses are really untapped market, right? When you have a veteran, their spouses move with them, right? And very skilled, oftentimes overlooked. So we actually at Deloitte had veteran and military spouses initiative as well. And then conversely, we may hire people whose spouses are veterans, right? So then how do you provide support to make sure that you are there for them if their spouses are deployed and all that? So I think corporate America can do a lot of things to really enrich, the experiences of veteran, and that's really a good way for people to do it.
Right. I know in my role as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, my role is to provide that conduit between, the civilian side of our nation directly to the Secretary, and making sure that there's an open line of communication, so that what are some of the best practices that we're finding in corporate America, and how do I communicate that to General Howe, so she can then potentially utilize that in preparing her soldiers, because it's important that not only is corporate America prepared and ready to receive our veterans into the civilian workforce, but we also have to make sure that on the military side, that we are allowing our soldiers, airmen, Marines, and sailors to prepare themselves as well. And we have programs in place for transitioning personnel, but we still need to make sure that everybody is really putting the work into it, so that they are properly prepared, coming out into the civilian world. So I'd like to thank all of my panelists for today. You were great. I know the audience. We got a lot of great, comments, from the audience, and how much they appreciated your participation and your answers. Is there one more question or comment? Okay, so there was just something from somebody in the audience about another resource out there. But thank you again, and I'm going to turn this back over to Lucy.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing panel discussion. I took so many notes. Brigadier General Howe, Ken, Winston, Ricardo, thank you on behalf of Ascend for all that you shared with us tonight. We couldn't get enough of the four of you. And Ricardo, I think your comment about sense of indebtedness to this country, we all raised our hand. We all felt that love. And thank you for highlighting that and for all the work you're doing, trying to bring veterans into your good company. Ken, Winston, I love how you came here for college and then you ended up giving to your adopted new home. And that's a beautiful thing. Ken, beautiful job moderating and all the hats that you wear. And of course, a special heartfelt thanks to Brigadier General Dr. Howe. You are amazing. Thank you for sharing your story and for breaking down doors for the next generation of female leaders. And I have to say something resonated with me and with many members in the audience was don't self-eliminate. I wrote that down. I think that's pure gold. And I think a lot of us do that. Oh, we can't have that job. We can't have that promotion. And you're saying, go get that medical degree, go serve, and go do everything and then go become a brigadier general because you can. So that was beautiful. And I thank you for that. And all the mentoring that you do, that all of you do, it's a beautiful way to pay forward. And I salute all of you. So next we pivot back to our northern neighbors. Our next storyteller is Captain Helen Chen, a member of Ascend Canada. She works at the Royal Bank of Canada and is an active member of RBC Salute. That's her bank's resource group for military employees. She joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 2018 as part of the Cadet Instructor Cadre, where she oversees training for more than 250 air cadets. Helen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with all of these fantastic speakers to share my story. I think it's perfect that Ascend spans both the United States and Canada, and we just so happen to share November 11th as Veterans Day in the US and Remembrance Day in Canada. I love that today's program recognizes the connection that we share in honoring those who have served. I joined the Royal Canadian Air Cadets when I was 12 years old. I wasn't sure what cadets even was, and I didn't really want to become a pilot like so many of my peers. What I quickly found, though, was that Air Cadets was about so much more than just aviation. In my years as a cadet, I got the chance to develop myself and learn crucial skills such as teamwork, citizenship, leadership, and public speaking. I joined my unit's debate team and went to competition, became an instructor, and taught lessons to junior cadets. And I even had the chance to attend summer training courses at Canadian Forces Base Trenton, where our classes were accompanied by the background music of planes taking off. Being an air cadet gave me a sense of belonging, an infectious esprit de corps that made me want to succeed in order to make my unit proud. And it gave me my first taste of leadership as a senior cadet with junior cadets under my care, people that I was responsible for looking after, for educating, and for developing. When I left the program as a cadet to go to university, I returned to my unit as an adult staff member, first as a civilian instructor, and then when my paperwork went through in 2018, I enrolled in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve. The subsection that I'm a part of, the Cadet Instructor Cadre, is actually the largest officer branch of the CAF, and it's made up of about 7,500 members. At my unit, I'm currently the training officer. In this role, I plan and oversee all of the training for the 250 cadets in my unit, one of the largest in Canada, along with my team of fellow officers and senior cadets. Through our training program, we aim to give our cadets a wealth of experience that can help them develop into well-rounded individuals that can tackle anything life throws at them. One of my favorite things to do, which we do a few times a year, is go on field training exercises. They have perhaps less day-to-day application, but we take them into the woods and they learn how to build their own shelters to sleep in, collect drinking water, craft snares, build signal fires, and learn other aircrew survival skills. When I say the Air Cadet program develops well-rounded individuals, I mean really well-rounded. In my work with cadets, I'm guided by my leadership motto, which is to always look out for the well-being of your people. I'm sure we've all heard the saying that leadership is the art of influencing others to accomplish a task. But good leadership is recognizing that the task comes second and your team comes first. Especially in working with youth, ensuring that my team feels safe and supported is the first step in helping them develop as people and achieving their goals. Our unit's operational model is cadets leading cadets, empowering the youth in our program to take on more responsibility through their progression and ultimately become the cadet leadership team that empowers the junior cadets under them. Working with youth through the Air Cadet program is something that I am incredibly passionate about, and it really allows me to see the impact that we make firsthand. Our unit is very active in our community, marching in Remembrance Day parades, volunteering at the Legion, and attending community cultural events. On a personal note, I'm driven by the impacts that I can have personally, as a positive role model for the youth that I mentor, as an Asian woman in an organization where that's still not very common. I've watched so many cadets join the program as shy, uncertain 12-year-olds and leave it as strong, capable 18-year-olds who have so much passion to make the world a better place. I hope that by seeing my leadership, youth who may not fit the traditional mold of a military member are inspired, not just to join the CAF, but to become themselves that role model for someone else. To conclude, I would encourage everyone watching to look at how you can get involved in your local community. With organizations that support veterans, such as the Legion, Veterans Care Centers, mental health supports, and even organizations that simply work to make our communities more inclusive and more welcoming. It is through the sum of our collective efforts that we can affect positive change in our communities. And now I'd like to pass the baton to our next speaker. Chris serves as the Military and Veteran Affairs Leader at Ernst & Young and describes himself as a passionate and dedicated leader with the primary focus of motivating and inspiring people to reach their full potential through servant leadership. He has more than a decade of experience designing and implementing military and veteran advocacy programs. Chris proudly served for 7 years as an artillery officer in the United States Marine Corps.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the introduction. So like Ricardo, I also have the privilege of working full-time in my role in support of the military community. I am the Veteran Military Affairs Leader at Ernst & Young and a proud Marine Corps veteran as well. So Ricardo and I need to connect and stay in touch following this session. I'm from a very small town on the Ohio River where power plants, coal mines, and farmland covered the landscape. I was first in my family to get a college degree. I actually took out loans and worked full-time to go through school and then join the military. So not the smartest way to go about it, but it is what it is. And my grandfather's father and uncles all served in the Army. So I know there's a lot of folks from the Army on here on the panels today. They all thought I was crazy for joining the Marines, so, especially after getting the degree and then going in. My grandfather just still, had no idea what was going through my mind. But, I was a pretty wild kid and lacked discipline. But I did have a lot of confidence, was pretty athletic, possessed some natural leadership skills from playing sports, and felt that the Marines could give me some much needed discipline at a time when I wasn't really ready to go to the workforce, and I also felt that I could offer them my skill sets as well. I wasn't incredibly patriotic at the time, but I soon felt an overwhelming sense that I was called to serve in the Marines, and fell in love with the mission. Started hanging out with all the Marines that I could find while I was at Ohio State. Quickly found that I was built for it. The Marine way of life was incredibly rewarding. I was an artillery officer, served in various billets, was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and Quantico, Virginia. Did a combat tour to Iraq for OIF early in 2003. While I was in Iraq, it's kind of the typical thing that you see in the movies. It's the whole "what now, Lieutenant" opportunity, where you're given a mission, you have no idea what the heck you're supposed to do, and you just have to go figure it out. And that's what so much of us veterans have in common, is that ability to figure it out and take initiative. Gather information, gather resources, pull teams together, get the information that others have that you don't, and be able to come up with a plan and then lead confidently and step out together while you're making sure that you're taking care of everybody and getting them all back safe is the ultimate mission. And so had the opportunity to do that in Iraq, was leading what we referred to as SNAP vehicle checkpoints. So we would take 4 vehicles out on Highway 1 in Iraq, and we would just basically set up roadblocks. We'd cordon off the area with our vehicles, bring folks through, and we would look for weapons and large cash stashes and other things along those lines. So very interesting time, especially early in the war, for us to be able to be at 4 vehicles out there alone and unafraid out there operating in that environment. Definitely has shaped me as a person, and the experiences that I had during that give me a different sense of reality, really, and what really matters in life. And when you're out like that, in any kind of downtime that you get, when you have the opportunity, you're always thinking about, what am I going to do when I get home, and what am I going to do to make the most of my life. And I still, to this day, live with that type of a mindset that every day, every minute is a gift, and I try to keep that perspective. Shortly after my deployment to Iraq, we got pregnant with my first son. My world changed. I was built to be a Marine, loved it, had planned on doing 20 at least and staying in. When he was born, I became instantly vulnerable. Knew as soon as I looked into his eyes that I wasn't going to be able to stay in the military and leave him on long deployments. So for those that have been able to make a career out of the military, my heart goes out to you, and how challenging that is to have a family and continue to serve. So much respect to those that are doing that. I wasn't expecting that shift. So I had to, kind of pivot my mindset to finding a career after the military. My degree was in criminal justice. I knew that being a law enforcement or going federal law enforcement was basically the same thing as being in the Marines deployed, and wanted to be a family first type of a person. So had to kind of pivot away from that, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, no idea what my transferable skills were. And in fact, I'd never even heard that term before, transferable skills, right? That's not something we used to talk about back in those days. But I embraced the challenge, made the most of, made it the transition my new mission. So I dedicated myself to the study of resume writing and interview techniques, conducted a lot of industry research, identified and connected with other veterans and companies that I was interested in to do some informational interviews, start building a network outside of the military. And although I'm extremely proud of my service as a Marine, my goal then was to be viewed as a business professional, not as a transitioning service member. And I enjoyed it when my colleagues were surprised to find out that I was a Marine. Like I wanted them to see me as a career project manager, and that's what I tried to step into. And that's the way I embrace that. So that transition can be very challenging, especially if you still got one foot in and one foot out. So I would encourage anybody that's going to be transitioning or currently is, just make that your new mission and jump full into it. And it's really the only way to do it is to embrace the change and go after it. I did learn several things in the military, I think, that have both peacetime and in combat that still shape me today and help me in my corporate role. I think first and foremost, you've heard it a couple times today, but people come first. A lot of folks have the misconception in the military that people have to follow you because they have to, or you can, that you can put them in the brig if they don't, which is true to some extent. But military leadership is very much about personal one-on-one time, and you heard Ricardo talk about that. It's getting to know the individuals before you jump in and start telling them what to do, and making sure that you take time to make a personal connection, whether you're a team member, a peer, or subordinate, or your boss. I think a lot of times that's overlooked in corporate culture as we jump straight into it because we've got missions, we've got, dollars that are hanging on every conversation. And a lot of times we don't take the time to step back and really get to know each other. So anytime I join a new team or start a project team, the first meeting, no business. It's all about, tell me about you, where you're from, what do you do, what drives you, and share a little bit about yourself. So I would encourage you to kind of do that. It's always served me well. Definitely to get diversity of thought from the military standpoint, and a different way of looking at problem sets, and Ricardo hit on it, the ability to hit both strategically and tactically, to be able to kind of think from both sides of the brain is a value I see from a lot of veterans that we possess. Knowing how you're going to react under stressful situations helps, right? Business is challenging. It's different stress, but it's definitely stressful. And so when you've been in situations where you've been completely stressed out, and understand how you think and where your strengths and weaknesses are, it's a lot easier for you to be able to pivot and function effectively. Perseverance and mental agility, I think, is another big one, and an unwillingness to fail, right? With the mission type approach to projects and engagements, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this work. If it means I'm working till midnight, I'm working till midnight, doing those things. And a lot of veterans will bring that to your teams as well. And then last, I think perception is reality. I heard that in officer candidate school. Perception is reality. It just our sergeant instructor kept saying that over and over, and I thought he was crazy. Just he said it so much. Like, what does that mean? And then as you get out, you really understand that personal branding is critical, and it's continuous. It's something that you constantly need to be checking in with, having emotional intelligence and being able to understand cues from how you're being perceived from others, and checking in with people and say, hey, how am I doing? How did I do in that session? And getting that constant feedback is incredibly important for us as veterans, because communication styles are different, cultures are different, social interactions are different, especially during early transition days. It's critical that you're getting those cues back and keeping a focus on that perception is reality. So lastly, the skills that have served me well in my corporate career continue to build on. And while I'm here at EY, our purpose is building a better working world. Services that we provide help build trust and confidence in capital markets and economies across the globe. So it's pretty easy to get behind that purpose statement and mission, which as a veteran is extremely important to me and a lot of my comrades as well. That to be part of an organization and a culture that makes a positive impact on the world is something I'm incredibly blessed to be here at EY. My role in the firm is I lead our National Veterans Advocacy Program. It's comprised of various actions and initiatives to support transitioning veterans, military spouses, and partners, and then also serving our Guard and reservists with different policies and benefits for them. We've developed a leading program and have been recognized by Military Times as the Best for Vets employer 5 years in a row, and are currently top of the list for professional services firms on that ranking. I'd be happy to share some of the details of the program that we've been able to put in place. If anyone is interested, feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn, and happy to share that with you. In closing, I would encourage all of you to spend some time talking with veterans. Just sit down and talk to them. You're gonna, if nothing else, you'll get some cool stories, and I think you'll learn a lot from them. They'll learn a lot from you, from the way that you can share your corporate knowledge, and it's just talking to people is the best way to learn and get a real understanding for what veterans need and the values that they can bring to your companies as well. So with that, I'll transition my time over. Our next storyteller is Rakesh Upadhyay, joining us from India. Rakesh was born in India and joined the Indian Army at age 21. He served 30 years as a retired colonel. His passions include writing, philosophy, and application of stoicism and leadership development. Rakesh believes that leadership is a way of life. Rakesh, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us in the middle of the night for you from India.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
I came across excellent leadership recently, and I was very happy to see the work they are doing, especially in leadership space and more especially in leadership development. And coming to the point of honoring veterans, it is very profound. It's a good way of saying thank you, showing gratitude, and recognizing to their sacrifices. And let me tell you, this really inspires the future generations. And about self-joining Army at the age of 21, it was not planned. It just happened. And family was initially reluctant, but they came on board. And as far the cultural inspiration is concerned, in India, the part I come, and in fact, all across, Indian Army has got a very special place in the hearts and minds of the entire population. And the kind of admiration they have, the kind of respect they have, that was very, very important. And that was, that held me in seeking this decision. So the next part of me, getting help of my military background for the journey now I am on as a leadership coach, it's been very, very helpful, I would say, because in coaching, it's all about partnership, partnering to assist client to grow and help to reach to their respective goals. And military experiences, what we do in military, it's all about discipline. It's all about structure. It's all about process, punctuality. And these are very important in coaching. Effective communication and communication with brevity, concise and precise. Again, very helpful. Ethical leadership, empathy, compassion, and more importantly, goal-oriented tasks, which we in armed forces are always inspired to do, is very, very profound in the coaching. So coming to the next point, which is a huge, huge plus for me, is, and the philosophy which I imbibe and propagate, is that leadership is a lifestyle. It's a 360 degree. It's 24/7, 365. It's not 9 to 5. It's not that you enter into office and put the leadership hat on, leadership role on, or leadership on, and once you're out of the office, it stops. No. It is every facet of your existence, whether it is personal, professional, social. So you live that. You live, you be in that shoe once you breathe. So having said that, a leader is who is leader in his own personal space too. Self-leadership. Again, very important thought. And as a leader, you must every possible way walk the talk. You do what you are expecting others to do. And having said this, there's a very important and most essential aspect is that leaders are not born, they are made. Leadership is developed. So this is the thought which I very passionately propagate. And in this, my journey, and recently I have, since I come from the background of strikeism and strike leadership, I have developed a leadership program, which is leadership development module. It's a 6 months program, and in which, inner journey is taken. It's a transformative thing. It's something which is very, very positive, life-changing. It helps you to take your inner journey. And the kind of responses I have been getting is overwhelming. So I thought I'll take this opportunity to let the world know about it. And lastly, about my leadership motto, I always maintain one thing: look within, because solutions lie within. Stay solid, stay unruffled, and with the help of stoic leadership. Thank you. I may request if somebody wants to ask anything, whatever I spoke, or anything about me as a leader or now as a leadership coach. I'm open to questions if this format allows. Well, I see nothing coming. Lucy, you may take the charge, please.
Okay. Rakesh, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us to define what leadership is. Thank you for teaching others about leadership and coaching the next generation, and certainly getting up in the middle of the night. And Chris, we are grateful for all the impactful work you are doing through EY to elevate our heroes, for showing us that the Marines do love a little dose of crazy, and for being so passionate about what you're doing to support other veterans. And a warm thanks to Helen, who showed us that you can begin your career at 12 years old and follow your passion and make a huge mark on the world. We wish all of you the very best. We have come now to the end of our program. Before we close, I would like to thank all our speakers and partners. I would also like to thank our guests for engaging with us on this global forum. And a big shout out to our community collaborators and allies for your continued support. This program would not have been possible without our top-notch Ascend team, a shiny gold star for all the work you poured into this program. And for all the beautiful warriors who shared their stories, thank you so much for inspiring us, for encouraging us, and for motivating us to keep marching forward. I do have two requests. In an effort to better understand the veterans' demographics within Ascend Network, to curate impactful programs, Ascend is conducting a short survey. We invite you to partake and be a part of this veteran community. The team will post the survey link in the chat. And second, as you exit, please take a quick moment to fill out a different short survey about today's event. That will pop up on your screen. Your feedback is invaluable. Finally, a virtual hug from all of us. I'm Lucy Yang. Remember to show some love to some vets. Stay safe. God bless. And we will see you at our next big event.